Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Has grief told you that you're not allowed to be happy, you're not allowed to laugh, and you're not allowed to have purpose anymore? Our conversation today with Romana, a writing coach, is going to blow past those negative myths. We're going to talk about how you are allowed to be happy, and at the same time, you're allowed to cry. You're allowed to have purpose, and you're allowed to miss your loved one. The duality of those is not a choice, one or the other. Let's get into this conversation now. Romana, welcome to the Widowhood.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. When you hear welcome to the Widowhood, like what's the invisible ticker tape that goes across your head thinking about this community and having this conversation?
As one of my best friends is Maria Lessi, and you are connected already, and I know what she's doing, I have quite positive feelings. But I have to tell the truth, if that would be, this conversation would have been 5 years ago, I would be like, what?
Oh.
So I think it's the more you get into the topic and talk to people, the better you understand what's meant. Yeah.
And where are you located at?
I'm in Salzburg, Austria, which is the Sound of Music city.
Thank you. And so I know it's 10 a.m. Eastern time for me. What time is it for you as we're recording this conversation?
It's 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and it's a lovely late summer day with blue skies and everything you wish.
Oh, it just sounds beautiful. Yeah. I am glad that you were able to join this series, Voices of Widowhood, Healing Through the Holidays. This conversation is intended knowing that the holidays and grief are not good partners. They can be very difficult. And you mentioned 5 years ago, this conversation would have been different for you. Can you share what's happened in that 5-year timeline, why it makes it different?
Yeah, first of all, I got to know Marie. She's working with widows in Sydney, Australia, and not only widows, but with the topic of grief in general. So we met via internet, Facebook. She saw my name and thought, that chica's Austrian too. I got to write her some lines. So we got in contact, and in 2021, my grandma died. So I grew up with her, and I never had expected that this hit me so hard. My grandma was a very, very happy person, a lucky person. She got 94, but I went into that, childhood feeling and behavior. I yelled out, "You promised me you get 100, and now you died at 94." And like I was devastated. And after I felt like out of my body, like watching myself acting. I've never had that before. And after 2 or 3 months, I called Marie and said, "Is that normal? In my family, it's not normal to talk about death, grief, what comes after, and how to behave. There's nothing. That's like white landscape." And so I got into that conversation on what's normal and why it's not necessary to act normal, because you are an individual and you're grieving and you're dealing with it, and especially with the holidays. That's your individual phase. So my granny died in September, and when Christmas was coming up, I always spent Christmas with her. That was a hard time. And I was very glad I had someone who guided me, like you guide people in those situations. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I understand, and I know from you working with Marie, all grief is the same, but at the same time, grief is different depending on the relationship. And I know a lot of people that are listening to this conversation may have lost their spouse. Mm-hmm. And by you losing your grandmother, it sounds as if it's giving you a concept of how profound and more extreme a loss could be of losing their spouse, someone that they've mended their life together with and done those different things. Speaking with Marie, having that community, but being in a family where that was not permitted or allowed, how did that make you feel to be someplace that you could talk freely about your grandmother and the grief that you were experiencing?
For me, there was a big release that it was allowed to cry. So in my family, it was like, she got 94, what are you crying about? This unbelievable for me. So it was allowed to cry. It was allowed to share. There were people in the group. I was invited to join a group who had lost their spouse, who had lost their kid, what I think is really, And we all shared what our feelings are, how we think the future will be, how hard it is, or how we might make it a little bit easier. In, first of all, sharing, and then, as I'm a writer, in writing. For me, it was that clue, okay, write it down. Maybe someday a story comes up with all those thoughts. Maybe a novel, maybe not, but keep on writing. So this was very important for me, as I'm a person who loves writing and deals a lot and heals a lot with writing. And this gave me so much ease and brought me back to my happiness. And now all these years after, I mean, it's 4 years after, and now I'm starting my third novel, which is about grandma. And I love that so much that it took its time, right? But it's here.
Wow. There are so many pieces of being in community that are helpful. The ability to, one, to be in the space with other people that have lost a loved one, and everyone's kind of uncomfortable and comfortable together. The idea of losing one's child, the idea of losing one's partner, the idea of losing one's grandmother are obviously different losses and impacting the individual in a different way. But there are some similarities in that grief. The idea of needing a safe space to talk, the ability to be able to know that people can relate to how I feel, that this is normal, even though normal may have been the idea of trying to shut it down. Having that, what do you think your grief would have looked like if you didn't have that type of support?
The most important difference for me is that I had all those memories, like the dishes grandma made. And I've been a vegetarian from childhood on. I didn't like meat. And she was the only person respecting this, cooking for me without meat. And if I wouldn't have that support, I would have just cried all over. I don't have that support anymore, those dishes whatsoever. But what happened afterwards was that we talked a lot about what you miss most. And is it that person, or is it something the person did or made you feel? And so I picked up the cooking. And between 2021 and 23, I wrote 2 cookbooks with all recipes in them. And I really grew into being a real good cook. That's what I took from her. And I think this process, if it would ever have happened, would have happened much slower, because I wouldn't have gotten the connection between what I miss so much and what I could carry on. And there were so many more little things, like the gardening or how she dealt with daily life, where I now realize, I picked that and I'm continuing with that. And this, of course, reminds me of her every day, but in a very, very good way. And not in the I miss you so much way, but there's always a place in my heart for you way.
Thank you for sharing that. And those are things that I think anyone can use in their grief journey. It may be harder. I know for me, doing things that my husband did sometimes are too hard because the relationship so close. But as time has continued on, there are some things doing that he did that do bring me comfort. They do bring me joy in carrying on his actions, that there's a part of me feels like he's still, his memory, his purpose is still here in this world by me doing things or our children doing things that he did. You also mentioned about writing. Where can somebody find your cookbooks from that you've written? And can you share the names of those with us?
The cookbooks are unfortunately only in German language. I did them in self-publishing, as over here in Austria, we speak Austrian, but we write German. Those are published in German, and they are called Star Cooking, because I am an astrologer as well. So I connected my astrological knowledge with the recipes.
Wow.
And
okay.
Yeah, I made some fun story about every star sign and the nice recipes fitting to every star sign. So that was a lot of fun. But unfortunately, the only book, I've written 11 books up to now, but the only one that ever got translated in English is one about coloring fabrics with plants, which is kind of a handicraft book. And
Okay.
that's the only one translated into English language.
Well, our podcast is seen in over 114 different countries, so it's not limited to just the U.S. speaking. So if you would share where people can find the book, or they may be interested, or your website where they can go and see all 11, you may find that there are people in this conversation that would be interested.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that my website is romanahasenöhrl.at, and maybe we can share that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And there you can find all my books. Most of them are available on Amazon, but not the Star Cooking books, as they were real self-published ones with like just 200 pieces each. And but you still can get some copies.
Okay.
When you send me an email.
Yes, and we will have the website in the show notes, and you can email me if you're not able to find it, because we would love for you to be able to connect and get that information. Let's explain a little bit more about the astrology and connecting that to the cookbook. That is a very unique approach.
Oh yeah, it is. It is, because when I came up with the idea, I, of course, did some research. Are there books out there about that topic in German language? And I found none. That was very trendy in the 80s. In the 80s, astrology had kind of a peak over here. And there were some books published, but they are not available any longer. I thought, okay, that's a good idea. Let's do that. But as I'm a very humorous person, with that spark in, so not being too serious, but for example, writing for all the star signs down, if you invite some kind of Leo person or Aries person or whatsoever, what you have to think about. And we had a lot of fun with that. Like if you invite the Leo person, you of course have to have golden plates, and so we did.
So if you invited the Taurus person, what would that look like? I'll put myself out there. That is my zodiac sign.
A Taurus person, you really have to show what you have in the sense of what you offer, dishes. For a Taurus person, if you want to make them happy, you don't just offer one dish like baby carrots and mashed potatoes, right?
I eat both of those.
You offer more dishes. You put the table in a very what do you call it? So in Austria we say, so it looks like as if the table nearly falls down because there's so much food on it.
Okay.
Because Taurus always wants the whole world, like the full world, the ripe world. And if you want to make them feel like that, of course, you offer a lot and you do some nice decorations, not too opulent, not golden, but very nice.
I never thought of presenting the meal according to someone's zodiac sign and what that looks like. That is very interesting.
It's so interesting and it's so funny because I'm doing astrology in a professional way for 15 years now. And of course, I watch people, so I watch my clients, and that I always see those same patterns. Okay, every birth chart is individual, that's clear, but you see those patterns shining through. For example, the Aries persons, they never have time. They are always in a hurry. It's so much to do. Bam, 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 bam. So they even don't have time to like kneel down and do their shoelaces, close their shoes. They are always like different. And same is with every sign. For example, yesterday morning I had one Scorpio client over here, and I knew if you start with them, either they don't say nothing, like they sit there and do like close their arms and say nothing, or they occupy you for 4 hours. They don't want to stop. So you always have the extremes, either this or that. You can't say they all sit there and say nothing. No, but it's always in extreme and you have to be very strict. So I knew before we started, this will be something about like borders. And
Guess I should have told you I was a Taurus before this conversation. Maybe that would have helped you prepare. You mentioned about clients, and I want to circle back to something that I believe is going to be the most focused part of this conversation. And you alluded to it a little bit about you using writing as a tool to manage your grief. People going through the holidays, losing their loved one passing, trying to grasp their emotions. A lot of times people go, I don't want to journal. I'm not into that. But I want to invite them to consider the power of writing and how it can be part of their healing journey in grief. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the work that you do with people learning to write or things in just that whole concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a writing trainer, and that means we do creative training, creative writing training. I do that, and I guide them from the creative part to structuring and publishing their books. And it doesn't matter which kind of book. It might be nonfiction, fiction, or poetry, whatever they want, because the procedure is always the same. And even the publishing part is always the same, no matter in which country on this world you live. So when we start with the creative part, for example, for people who say, I'm not into journaling, but I want to help myself to get through the holidays, there are some tiny little exercises from creative writing which you might use. And that is, one of them is, now at this moment, pick 3 items you have in reach, right? I, for example, have here something to put my hair together. I have some cream for my knee because it hurts, and a pen. And then you start writing a one-pager, a fictional story which must contain the 3 items. And that's how we get started, because then your focus is not on your grief and not what you should do to heal and not with the journal and I have to keep that. You just get crazy with that. You get funny. You write down, oh, there was a little a cream called, I don't know, Jenny. So you get very creative with that. And this is just for opening up our little synapses in our brain who are closed now and say, I don't want to write, I don't need that. So we open them. Or another little exercise is you pick some little pieces of paper and you write on them different genres. For example, Western, I don't know, thriller, children's story, love story. You put them on in one little glass, and in the next glass you write down some items. I don't know, a glass, a pen, a cup, a book, and in the next glass you put names. And then you pick from each glass you pick one piece of paper, and that means now you have to write a thriller, about a pen called Mary. And then you have to write a one-pager. And this is so much fun because you have to think, how do I get into that genre? What's a thriller all about? How should I begin? What's my first sentence? So these are little exercises to start with, and people will find out after 3 of those stories, you keep on writing. You don't stop anymore. And then the thoughts come out.
I love that because if you didn't explain that, in my mind, limited, not a trainer, I'm thinking you're just going to take your journals and then try to elaborate on a story about that and create this book. What you have explained is how to open up that creative part of yourself that is not related to the grief and just writing a story and just to see that flourish from yourself, which is probably so different than what a non-writer would have thought about. We would, just thinking, let's get right to it. You're thinking, let's just learn how to just talk about it, just write it down and just let that creativity flow. What has, and not naming the person, the hardest person you've had to work with that just couldn't release that? And how did you bring them over into releasing their creativity?
That was one person. She visited so many courses up to now. And she always says, first of all, I don't want to write at all. But she's still coming.
But why come to you then? Make that, bring those two together. Yes.
I don't really need that. Or I gonna do that when I'm retired, right? So all those things people say because their inner boycotteur just doesn't want them to become happy. People have that, right? Inner soldiers that say, no, it's not allowed to be happy, especially when you lost someone, right? It's not allowed to ever be happy anymore, or it's not allowed to be successful. It's not allowed to get applause. It's not allowed to do what you love. So we all have those restrictions in ourselves. And in traumatic situations, those restrictions get very strong. And grieving is a traumatic situation.
Absolutely.
So then those restrictions grow. So with this student, I always give her the craziest things to do. So I tell her, okay, write a one-pager. You just got 10 minutes. Now that's a lot of pressure. And she always says, I can't stand pressure. So I give that pressure. Write a short story that should be a crime novel about a dragon. And the most important item in that story is let's find something very crazy, lawnmower, So, and then she writes stories where the whole class can't stop laughing. It's so brilliant. And then she's in that energy and loves it. And knows that's why she's here.
Wow.
But always at the beginning, she's like, no, I don't want to write.
The power of our words and what we tell ourselves seems to be a big portion of the process. What we're telling ourselves over and over again. You spoke about something very powerful and so relatable that when people are grieving, the need to give ourselves permission, the need to say, I am allowed to be happy. I am allowed to find joy. I am allowed to laugh. Doing those things does not mean you're still not allowed to miss your loved one. You can allow yourself to be joyful and you allow yourself to miss your loved one. You allow yourself to laugh and you also can allow yourself to cry. Do you think people feel like it's one or the other? And it's a hard time realizing they both coexist.
I think that's absolutely true. That's so true. And that's why they stop allowing themselves to step out of that grief moment. Next to that, in our community is like, you have to stay in this, especially with widows, at least for, I don't know, a
way
year,
too
2
long.
years whatsoever. Yeah. They
Way
want to
too
keep
long.
you there, right?
This solace, this box. But unfortunately, if you're a man, oh, go get it, guy. You know, it's time to live your life. But this idea that society has placed women that we should be cut off and we should just be stoic and no longer be vibrant and be alive, and having to push through that, I would totally agree from that. Let me pull myself back, because it's just like, yeah, that one does not work for me at all. But I've seen that way too often, that is a thing for people. So now you've allowed someone to tap into their creative writing, and let's say they've come to you and said, I want you to help me write a book. And you mentioned very lightly some of the things. What would happen if I were to decide to work with you in writing a book? What would some of that process look like as you were guiding me through?
So first of all, we would, of course, talk about your topic, your wish, nonfiction or fiction, where are you going? And here we would find out where you really want to go. I lately had a student, for an example, she came out of a relationship, and I don't know the English word for that.
Domestic violence?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Very, very hard story. She still was traumatized, even though it's years ago. And she wanted to write it not as a novel, but as her story, like an autobiography. Okay. And I told her, let's think and discuss if you really want to do that. Because with this, you are really in the story. If you transform it into a novel, you get the distance and you can look on that whole story from the distance. So this would be one of the first decisions we make. And that's what we did. This took us 3 sessions and a lot of conversation, but she's now absolutely happy with the fiction idea. And the next part is, of course, we talk about how do you write? Where are your little soldiers who say, no, 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 no? So we find them out. We get those creative writing part. So I normally tell people it is possible, even if you're not a professional writer and you have your daily life with what you have to do, it's possible to write 50,000 words per month. That's possible. And that is a novel. That's around 250 pages. And then I give them tools how to do that. They do not have to. But it's, for me, very important with the first draft. That's how we call it. You get into the writing flow and write. Don't step out of the flow. Don't think you can write every Sunday afternoon. No, we write every day. If people don't have that much time, I give them then write 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes, go. And so after that, the first draft kind of spit out, then we go into structuring. But in some projects, we do the structuring first. So that's very individual. But that's the next part, structure. If it's non-fictional, we need chapters, we need explanation, information boxes, pictures, graphics, whatsoever. If it's a fiction, then we want to build a storyline first, right? Then first we need a storyline before we get into the writing flow. We want to know every story has a hero, right? Or a heroine. That's the main part. So we want to know when here is A and here is B, what is that? What do we want them to learn, to find out? We have to paint that way, roughly. Mm. So normally I have one of those here. I give them materials like this. We do storylines with Post-its, so we can repost them however we want. And then we have at one point the storyline we want to start with. That's structuring work. And after the structuring work, then the hard part begins, because that's after writing, how do we publish? So I teach them all about how to find a publisher, what to do if you don't find one. Maybe you do not want the publisher. Some people say, I do not want them, because they want to talk about your content, right? If you want to do what you want, you don't choose a publisher. So what are the possibilities for self-publishing? I often give people those bad examples out there. There are bad people out there as well in the publishing world. For example, one student of mine, she got an email from a publisher who said, "We are highly interested in your children's book. That children's book has 20 pages. That's like a tiny, tiny book. And they wanted to have 4,000 euros for 100 of these books." And I said, "No, these are bad people. We do not work with them, right? They want to take a lot of our money for things we can do much easier, because most people are not rich and say, okay, I don't care, I just published that book." So,
it's not a money maker. You're not going to,
no.
People feel like, oh, you published a book. It's like, I'm not stopping my day job for that. Let's be clear.
No. And that's what we talk about as well.
The reality of that.
Yeah.
I don't, that is I know there's more, but I don't want you to give away everything, because I do want to share that on January 10th at 11 a.m. Eastern time, you are going to host a workshop for the Widowhood community, and that will be on our Eventbrite page, a very small fee, and you have agreed to donate the fee for that to the Widowhood. Can you, and I thank you so much for the support, can you explain to people just a snippet of what they may get, if it's maybe the same of what you did there, or what they can expect, and the ability to work with you one-on-one, that they have that by participating in this workshop and really do something amazing. And it may not be a book on grief. It may be something else that they wanted to do, but this is their time realizing the precious life is, and they may want to do something different.
Yeah. In the webinar, first of all, we will do one of those or two of those crazy exercises. And I know that people always love that. And after that, I will talk a little bit about how writing can help us to heal. And I will tell a story from my life, which I haven't told today. So that's an exclusive story then. Yeah. And that's a story where my first novel got created with. So that was a real healing story. And the result was a novel. And I talk about that. And then there is, of course, the possibility to ask questions. So maybe there are people who have started already. They just have the same thing like my student. They have written to publishers already and they got back answers and don't know what to do now. So there will be time for questions and answers. Yeah. And I think next to all the technical thing, we're going to have a lot of fun.
Wow. That is a gift. When people normally do something like that with you, what is the cost in participating in that, just so they get a sense of what you're really giving to the community?
Yeah. So normally I'm giving away those, if it's a 1 hour webinar, that's all euro price, but I think it's almost the same in dollars. That's for $96 or euros. Right. And then I have 4-day boot camps. What we do 2 hours every day, and you really get a lot done in those 4 days. And that's a 490 package. Okay. And then I have my most beloved summer camp. That is 8 weeks. So we meet for a kickoff event, all online. And that is 2 days where we sort out what we want to do, what students want to have at the end of the summer or winter camp. I offer winter camp as well. Oh, okay. And then we meet up every week on Sunday and see, okay, what are the questions? What worked? What didn't work? And they get a lot of content about writing and publishing and what you can do. There are so many secrets I then give away, gold nuggets. For example, what you said before, I didn't expect that you do a fun exercise and that helps, right? So gold nuggets like that. And this summer camp is for 1,900. And at the end, we have a party for people who can come here in person. They are then invited to present their project in front of an audience. Okay. And if they cannot, they send us a video. So that's what we had last Sunday. We had 4 participants presenting, and one of them came directly from Sydney, Australia, with a video. And now the secret is we have an audience here, and they all get informations about those books, they give away their email addresses. So then those becoming writers have their first contacts and email addresses, and that's worth gold.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the community in the grief, the community in this writing experience, it brings hope. It brings that this may be the most difficult experience in your entire life, losing your loved one. But the reality is you are still alive and your life has meaning, your life has purpose. And being able to take your life, and sometimes I know for me, my life is totally different than when my husband Mark was here. And it felt like every day crawling through hot lava, trying to find out who Tina is, not saying Tina and Mark. This is a wonderful opportunity to take your life and do something that you may find that you enjoy. Sometimes you may find out you don't like writing, but the trying of it, it brings you closer to something that you would enjoy. And I just encourage you to be a part of this workshop. And we will have it on Eventbrite. Like I said, it is January 10th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll have the details. And I believe this will be something that will be extremely helpful and enjoyable for you as you give yourself permission to find joy, give yourself permission to be happy, and give yourself permission to love yourself. I would ask you something a little bit different. I try to give my guests an opportunity to ask me a question. Is there anything you would want to ask me, sort of reverse the roles, to let you be the podcaster and I be the guest?
Yeah. I have two questions.
Okay.
So the first is, as you mentioned, it's so hard what role people want to put you in as a widow, right? So how did you deal with it? Did you first at the beginning just think I have to fit in, or how did that work for you?
You know, that's a really good question. No one has asked me that. I have always been different. And I realized that this part of my life was not going to be limited to someone else's perception, someone else's viewpoint. My husband died, the man I spent 32 years with, and no one else gets to dictate that experience. No one was his wife but me. And I had to realize that in a powerful way, that I was grateful that I have friends and family that have supported me through this journey. And none of them told me how I had to do this. But what they did, they made themselves available to listen. They made themselves available to hold space and to love me no matter what it looked like. So I know it was a confirmation from my family and friends holding me in love. A big part of that also my faith in God and what I saw, what the Bible said about life after this experience here on earth, giving me comfort in that regard. The nonprofit Widowhood Real Talk with Tina is a non-faith-based organization. We meet people where they're at in loving them, but my faith is important to me on an individual basis. And just realizing this is going to be something that I did need community. Even though my family and friends, I learned to speak. I opened up my phone book, and every widow that I knew, I reached out, whether I had lunch with them or breakfast or just a phone conversation. I wanted to hear how other people had endured this experience. And from hearing their stories, it gave me further permission to navigate this. But I needed to hear those other voices. And all of that was a part of me being okay with how this would look for me. I was in the Army for 21 years, so used to hard things, just not used to this. I had just in the process of recovering from breast cancer when Mark died. So I had learned to say no to a lot of things that weren't going to serve me and give myself permission to just be, because I didn't know what this was like. I remember that when we started to have children, we were reading books on how to have children. You read books on how to be a wife. No one had said how to be a widow. So I got a therapist. I needed someone to deal with my mental, being in close connection with my physician, understanding how grief was impacting my body. My blood pressure went up, what different things needed to be on a holistic scale to make sure I was managing every part, because Mark's death impacted me on every level, and being intentional about myself.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow. Yeah, first for me, that's a very strong message. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And those were the self-care things I did for me. And this organization, Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, as I was looking at some of the things in preparation, they are built off of some of those same premises, because we need community and we also need the confidence to be able to do this our own way. There's a mix of both of those exist.
Yeah. My second question is,
Okay.
some little birdie told me that you want to write a book as well, or you are in the process already, or?
Yeah, that birdie is
Tell
correct.
me more.
Yes, in fact, I'm going to have an entire podcast on that where I'm going to share with everyone. So this will be a tidbit of that. The book is called The Five Widows Club. It is a 81,000 word upmarket women fiction book. The book is done. I am going over some final edits. I have a printed copy downstairs, and I'm going through, because it looks different in print than when you're doing it on the computer. So I needed to print a copy. And since there are 5 widows, the widow's name Ava. She is a young widow with a very new child. Joyce is married to Evelyn. Trish is married to her partner Grant, who is a military man. Carmen is married to Miguel, and Monique is married to Darnell. And these 5 widows are sharing. They met in a grief support group meeting led by June, who is the grief leader. And it takes them through their individual journey from the moment their spouse died to where they are in this process. And over, I want to say about a 5 or 10 year period of their journey, you learn about their spouses through flashbacks and different memories that they have, because we, as losing our loved ones, our mind is often rotating back to the past. But the story intentionally starts from the moment that their spouse died, because that's when everything changed for them. And that's when things change for people on an individual basis. And yeah, it has been an amazing journey. The goal is to finish all of my edits, put them in a soft copy, and I have an editor that I plan to send them out to by the 1st of October. Just spoke with them last night, and then have that ready. And I think I'm leaning towards a hybrid publishing methodology. I want the team built in. I want the people, because the advertising and putting those things together is really important in getting the book out there to book clubs, to hospice. And I went with the fiction book because I wanted people to want to read a story. And when I went into bookstores, the self-help books are all the way in the back, in the corner under psychology. The juicy, tantalizing stories are up front. And I believe that we learn from stories. And by reading the stories of these 5 women, and just that people that were appreciative enough to go and be my advanced reader, they all provided excellent feedback. And to your point, my first version was about 39,000 words. And everything happened too quickly. My characters did not develop. I didn't have all of that inside. And so now getting to 81,000 words, I've now created that emotional arc, that story, giving each of the widows an opportunity to get to know them. Some of them I kind of left out. I forgot about them because you're just writing away, then stepping back. And having advanced readers was hard, but it was good to be able to get organic feedback from people. The story was good, but you're missing here. Some of this is jumbled and all this other different things. And so I say this, it may be hard to give this to people, but if you're trying to write a book that's going to be good for the reader, you need to get readers to give you input. And I found that extremely helpful. The book is part of a trilogy. The first one is The 5 Widows Club. The second book is The 5 Widower Circle, which will be a book of 5 widowers and their journey in grief. And then the third book will be 2 children from the widows, 2 from the widowers, and a new young adult called The Children We Carry. And from that perspective, it will give an angle from a widow, a widower, and their children from 3 different angles. I know there are other ways that we lose people, but that is the heartbeat of this organization. And I'm excited to see how people will see themselves in this story And I've had people read this book that are not a widow or widower. Just last couple of weeks ago, my pastor read one paragraph and his eyes started to just water up. And he said, that was me when I lost my dad. That people will be able to normalize grief and see this is not something we have to hide. This is a thing that happens to all of us. We will either grieve someone, or if we're lucky enough, someone will grieve our absence when our time is done in this world. And to be able to write something like this and put it into words, I would have never done had I not had this experience. So I am excited. We are having a event here in Norfolk, Virginia on May 16th, a fundraiser. And that is scheduled to be my first book signing where people can obtain the books, probably hard copies and signed, and just be able to celebrate in a fundraiser that we're doing for the Widowhood. Thank you for that question.
Oh, I will buy my copy as soon as it's out there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I am going to say something to our listeners, and then if there's something you feel like we missed or didn't cover, and then you can close out this conversation, okay? Thank you for being here with us. I know this series of Voices of Widowhood Healing Through the Holidays is going to be very impactful for you. We know the holidays can be hard, but we are on this journey with you. And thank you for being here. I am sorry for the person that you have lost that is no longer here that drove you to this conversation, but I'm glad that you found us.
Yeah, all that's left is thank you so much for having me on your show. It was a great pleasure for me. And for all people out there who want to reach out to me and have questions about writing or publishing or how writing can heal and help yourself, be aware I do it in English and German and Austrian. So don't be shy, just call in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.